I want to thank everybody for coming. Thank you so much for coming, all of you, from near and from far. Chashuv guests from Eretz Yisrael. Am Sheschus. Amen. And to all of the chaverim that are coming together to be mitchazek, to take strength from the words of the tzaddikim that we learn as a chabura, that is Hashem. Thank you so much for coming.
Because Yud side today, we should think about that.
The Heilige Arizah.
Yeah.
Avada. Schusay Yagan Aleinu. Rebbe Nachman says in the Hakdama to Likutei Moharan that all of the Arizal's words and all the Kisvei Ari are wrapped up into the Sefer. So there's a very deep connection between Rebbe Nachman and Arizal, Rebbe Shimon, and those tzaddikim. So Be'ez Hashem will also be Yotzes on learning the words of the Arizal also in some way tonight. So Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, I'd like to take a look at a fundamental sugya that comes into focus through a number of teachings from Rebbe Nachman. We're going to take a look at 3 in different places, and we're going to try to bring them together in such a way that we can gain a little bit of clarity into what our avodah is bechlal in this life, but specifically in this time period where all of us understand that we are active participants in bringing about the Geula Shlema. The Baal Shem Tov's vision of Geula wasn't that one day we move from Galus and then a light switch is flicked on and okay, Mashiach is here, but that it's a process. It's a long, gentle, slow, but steady process that has been underway for many hundreds of years. And you and I, mamish you and I, specifically you and I, who are connected to the teachings of these tzaddikim, are part and parcel of moving that dimmer just a little bit more, each of us in our own life, by becoming freed as individuals. And that's what Rebbe Nachman focused on more than anything. He called it Geula Pratis. The Baal Shem HaKadosh said the Geula HaKlalis, the collective redemption of all of Am Yisrael, is just a sum total of the individual redemptions of each and every Yid. And so we can already now, in the throes of our exile, we can already begin to access that hour of Geula. But we have to understand first what Galus is, and then what Geula means. If we are to have any success, and we should have much success, and we've had much success, and we'll continue to have tremendous amount of success in channeling the hour of the Geula into our lives, Be'ezus Hashem Yisbarach. Let's take a look at a pasuk in Eicha, in Parak Beis, which Be'ezus Hashem we will not have to read later this week. We'll celebrate the Redemptive, Karei Lai Mayed, in the third Beis HaMikdash. But the pasuk in Eicha tells us the following: Asa Hashem Asher Zamam. Yirmiyahu Hanavi says that everything that I warned about in the entirety of Sefer Yirmiyahu, which is a pretty long Sefer, and it's filled with this repetitive promise on the part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that if we don't get our act together, whatever that act was and whatever together meant, the Beis HaMikdash is going to be destroyed. We're going to lose what we had. Says Yirmiyahu Hanavi in Eicha, it happened. Asa Hashem Asher Zamam. Exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said he would do took place. Bitza Emrasai. He was mivatseya. He performed. He acted out. He actualized Imrasai what he had said. Asher Tziva, what he commanded. Mimei Kedem. This may be a reference even to Psukim and Tarasha B'Ksav. Forget about the Nevi'im. To the T. Whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, it was foreseen. Especially in our Sefer and Sefer Devarim, where we get warned again and again, it's not going to last. Mehera, we're going to lose our way. Haras v'loy chamal. There was destruction. There was not overt compassion. The Yisamach Alayach Oyev, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed the enemy to rejoice over us. Heirim Karen Sarayach. And our pain and our narrow constraints was magnified in a terrible way. Those two bolded words, Vitzaim Rasai, on a simple level mean HaKadosh Baruch Hu acted out his words. Amira means speech. Bitza means to actualize. But the Heilige Medrash, in a lengthy passage, compares the mourning of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the mourning of a Melech Basar V'Dam. And that means, says the Medrash, goes through many different things that a king might do if Chas v'Shalom he were to mourn over something. And of course, one of the expressions of mourning, thank you so much for coming, is to tear our clothes. And so the Medrash focuses on these two words and says, Bitza Emrasai. The word Imra could mean a word, an expression, but an Imra also means like a chaluk, like a cloak. Imra is Aramaic for a cloak. Bitza could mean he tore his cloak. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was in mourning. He ripped his clothes. Bitza Emrasai. That's what the Medrash says. So Rebbe Nachman quotes this Medrash right away in the beginning of this Torah, Reish Yutes. It's not the whole Torah, we just took a piece from it. And Rebbe Nachman says, Bitza Emrasai, what does this mean? HaKadosh Baruch Hu did what he said he would do, but deeper. He tore his cloak. He quotes the Medrash, Biza Porphira Delay. He humiliated, he ruined his porphira, which is like a purple tunic, like a cloak. He ripped his coat. Now, already the Medrash is deeper than the Pashup Pshat, because like that we said, the Pashup Pshat means he did what he said he would do. That's Pashup Pshat. The Medrash takes it a step deeper and says, no, we can sense that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mourning with us. He rips his clothing. Rebbe Nachman takes it to a whole nother dimension. So far we had Pshat, Drush, and now Rebbe Nachman tells us the side. Ki bevadai, says Rebbe Nachman, Schusi agan aleinu eina beis hamikdash yachal izbal kavod v'gavosi yizbarach. The Beis HaMikdash is not able to contain the kavod and the gaiva, the pride and the intensity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's essence or even his revelation. Kamay shekasav, and it's a literal pasuk. It's an overt pasuk, the pasuk in Malachim Aleph, where Shlomo HaMelech is dedicating the Beis HaMikdash, a very beautiful passage, which we'll learn a little bit from Be'ezus Hashem a little bit later. And Shlomo HaMelech says, Hine Hashamayim u'shmei Hashamayim lo yichalkelucha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the heavens And the heavens of heavens, the higher realms, lo yichal kalucha, they're not enough to contain you. Afki abayis hazeh. And Shlomo HaMelech exclaims in surprise and in confusion, how could this physical house contain you? That this is where the Gilui Shechina is, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the whole physical world can't contain you. Ein ha'olam mekaymai, as Chazal tell us. Hu mekaymai shel olam. The world is in his place. He is not in the world. And so certainly, how do you look at the whole cosmos, all of physical existence, and then focus in on one particular physical house? Eich zeh efshar. So Rebbe Nachman says, Rakam achmas ahavas Yisrael, but because HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves the Jewish nation, Tzimtzem v'hilbesh es ga'avasai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu constricted, and he clothed his gaiva, his true revelation, Kedei lahashra shchinasa bebeis hamikdash, in order to dwell in that place, in the Beis Hamikdash. For what reason? Kedei legalos malchusai, so that he could reveal his malchus. On a simple level, it's impossible for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be constricted into a bias. Only by way of garments. Garments that Hashem wears. In those garments and those kalim, which we talked about on Thursday night, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, this is where I am. Why is Hashem in that place? Which is a much broader question. Why is Hashem b'chalal in this place? Why is there a place that we refer to as this place? How can we refer to this place? Who are we? The existential question of all of this is Kedei legalis malchusai. What does that mean? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to reveal his malchus. What's the concept of malchus? Say the Sfarim HaKadoshim, Ein melech b'loi am. There cannot be a king without a nation. And that means to say something very deep. You and I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is infinite. Ein sof, that's how we refer to him in the deeper Sfarim. Ein sof. The only thing that we can say about him is that he's infinite. We don't even have categories in our human minds to grasp what infinity means. Hashem is Ein sof. Hashem doesn't need anything because he's infinitely perfect. But strangely enough, there's one way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is imperfect. There's one kind of way where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is imperfect. In what sense? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu has this midah of Malchus. Thank you so much for coming. He has a midah called Malchus. Hey, brother. Great to see you. Thanks for coming. Right? Hashem has a midah of Malchus. Now, in order for Hashem to reveal the way in which he is a king, so then built into the concept of Malchus is that Malchus cannot be expressed in a vacuum. Malchus needs other conscious-like beings, similar beings, because he can't be a king over ants or over dogs, it has to be over human beings. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu needed to create people in an element called Selam Elikim in order so that they should be makir his Malchus. Now that's something that's impossible for us to understand, right? Because it gets into questions of malufnim. What did Hashem do before creating the world? The world is within time. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is outside of time. So how does that work? These are questions we can't, not just we don't ask because they're dangerous questions. We cannot ask because we cannot answer. It's useless. Our minds can't grasp these ideas. But one thing we know is that in order for Hashem's Malchus to be revealed, Kedei legalos malchusai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu must create a world. And he must reveal himself into that world in an extremely, and here's the key word, vulnerable fashion. Because to need others when you're an infinite being is incredibly vulnerable. The Malchus of Hashem is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals a place where he is not as secure as he may appear on paper, the God of the philosophers. It's a very human God, so to speak. It's a very relatable element of needing something. Even though, again, we can't fathom what this means on the infinite level. Hashem's shalim kol minei shleimus. But Tzachakol, you and I are here, right? We have to deal with that. We have to grapple with that. Two things can be true at once. One doesn't need to be a steerer to the other. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is being metzamsim himself in the Beis Hamikdash is HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealing a part of him that is, so to speak, in need of you and me, in need of a relationship, in need of us to come to that place, to enter into a bond with him. to be able to recognize him, to be makir him, so that he can be seen. And a relationship, of course, if it's a healthy relationship, and one member of the relationship is truly going to be seen, it needs to be a two-way street. It needs to be a two-way street. And Kadosh Baruch Hu set this world up in a way that the pasuk tells us, "Kemayim panim el panim," like water reflects a person's face. You look in water and you see your face reflected. Kemayim panim el panim. This is the way Kadosh Baruch Hu set up human relationships. When a person shows one kind of energy toward another person, it's going to get reflected. So Hashem says, "Listen, I'm ready to reveal my vulnerability, but I need you to step into that space too." There needs to be an open channel, not just from my end, but from yours. And then when one kruv is turned toward the other, memela, the two kruvim face each other. Kedei legalos malchusai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals his vulnerability. That's what we should read the word malchus to mean, the possibility of a relationship. Zebechinas, and this is the aspect of the pasuk Ketelim Hashem Malach, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to reveal this aspect in which he is a melech who needs us. Kiviyachol ein melech b'loi am, says the pasuk Geius Lavesh. What does Geius Lavesh mean? On a simple level, it means, hey, thanks for coming. It means that he clothed his gaiva, his greatness. He clothed it. Says Rebbe Nachman much deeper. Geius, his grandeur, Lavesh. He enclosed it within the Beis HaMikdash in order so that Hashem Malach, so that he might be a Melech, so that we might have a place where we can come into what's referred to in Chazal, the Cheder HaMitos, that place of intimacy. What happens in a place of intimacy? It's the most vulnerable thing on both parts. That place of the Kodesh HaKodashim, the Kruvim, that relationship. Hashem Malach, so Geius Lavesh. He wore a cloak. In order to reveal his malchus, hilbish v'tzimtzem as geius shaloi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu left that realm in which he is the perfect, infinite God, and he revealed a very intimate, vulnerable place. So that we can have a reciprocal relationship where we're not overwhelmed by Hashem's perfection, so there's no room for us, but we recognize, wow, there's space for me. There's space for me. This is the depth of Rosh Hashanah, which we're coming up to now. Not getting to the whole thing now, Rosh Hashanah, but Adam and Chava, the creation of Chava, so that they can be turned panim el panim, so that they can face one another in a symbiotic relationship. Rosh Hashanah is all about Malchus, right? Kedei shenuchal lizbol kabbalas al malchusai aleinu. Aval kishi Yisrael chatu lefanav. But when we turned away, when we stopped showing up in a vulnerable and authentic way, to be able to reveal and to express before HaKadosh Baruch Hu our lack, and when we started to pretend as if we had it all together, and when we started to put on an external facade where we don't need anybody and we don't need anything, and God's opinion doesn't really matter to me because I don't need it. What does that mean? It's every word in Rebbe Nachman is meduyak, not stam. Lefanav. What? You could have just said it because Yisrael chatu. Lefanav means we turned away from his face. A face is a very vulnerable place. To look people in the eyes is a very vulnerable thing to do. It can get awkward sometimes to look somebody in the eye for too long. Why? Because they're looking at a part of you that maybe you don't want them to see, maybe. The eyes are mamish, it's a cliche, but it's true. The windows of the soul. To be able mamish to just look someone else in the eye. A very deep thing, very, very deep thing. Chatu lefanav. Chat means to deviate, doesn't mean like to sin, an evil thing. Melashin v'lo yachti, right? To diverge. Chatu lefanav. We turned away. As I kiviyachal hera v'gilei Hashem Yisbarach as ga'avasai. So then Hashem said, listen, if you're not showing up authentically with me, then I'm not showing up authentically with you. Chas v'shalom, kiviyachal, the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, listen, it's not working on either end. And I'm going to recede. I'm going to also go into a place of Ein Sof. Hashem says, I'm not going to reveal myself in such a way to you. Umemela, says Rebbe Nachman, so then what happens? Nechrav Beis HaMikdash. Why did the Beis HaMikdash get destroyed? Not because the Romans And the second Beis HaMikdash, the Babylonians, and the first Beis HaMikdash, not because they came and they burnt it and they destroyed it. That's not what happened. Says Rebbe Nachman, there was an atomic spiritual explosion that took place within those walls. It looked on the outside like some people were coming and burning or breaking. That's not what happened. There was a removal of tzimtzum. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm not constricting myself in this way. I'm not showing up in this intimate space. I can fill a whole corporate building. I don't need to fill a bedroom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that's the level of relationship. Okay, I'm out. And what out means is a gilui. And what a gilui means in a chanami. Going back to the Pasuk of Malachim, the building cannot contain that revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the deepest thing. V'zeh, says Rebbe Nachman, that's what the Pasuk in Eicha tells us. Bitza im rasai. Doesn't just mean on the simple level Hashem did what he said he would do. Doesn't either mean just on the level of the Medrash that Hashem mourned, he tore his coat. Much deeper. It wasn't a response to the Beis HaMikdash being destroyed that Hashem tore his cloak. That is a metaphor for the destruction be'etzem. What was the destruction? Bitza im rasai. Hashem tore his cloak. He stopped constricting himself into this garment. Biza porfira dilei shekara esalavush shaloi. Hashem tore that cloak. Kind of shekara esalavush va'at simsum hanal. HaKadosh Baruch Hu left, so to speak, that element of being able to show up again on a divine level. We can't fathom it vulnerably. Ein melech baloi am, giving us space to complete him kiviyachol. If you take a look in the Ma'arei Nayim, Parshas Noach. Shocking, right there in the beginning, the second piece. He says it openly. I couldn't even say these words. I have it on my shelf. He says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'li Yisrael einoi davar shalim. If I'm not mistaken, those are his exact words. Now again, he doesn't mean this on the ultimate level, because again, Hashem is perfect. It doesn't need us. But in the way of us living in this world and relating to Hashem in the way that he wants to be related to, Kadosh Baruch Hu is begging us, please, please, for me. Ki'ilu, we're giving him something. We know we're not, but we are, in some way. Eina davar shalim. Adam and Chava, it's got to be Ezer Kenegdai. Ezer Kenegdai. Am Yisrael is the Isha, Klape Hashem. We are an Ezer, so to speak, in some wild way. Shekara salavush shalei and shekara salavush v'atzimtzum haniskele el v'chinas geius lavei shanalik. We said memela nechrav Beis HaMikdash, so the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed. Memela. Kimiacha shekara ubitel asatzimtzum v'alavush. Once that constriction was removed, so then shuv ena Beis HaMikdash yachul lizbok avasi ga'ane. So you're right. So Shalom HaMelech, you're right. The Beis HaMikdash can't handle this gilui. Ki hein hashamayim v'shmei hashamayim lo yichal kalucha. Going back to that pasuk in Malachim. The heaven of heavens can't contain Hashem. The building certainly can't. Okay, this is all mitzvah HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now let's reflect on our side of the relationship, and let's reflect what it means for each and every one of us individually. The collective gullus, all of us know what gullus means. All of us know what gullus means on a collective level. All of us know what it means to live outside. Well, some of us do outside Eretz Yisrael. Even in Eretz Yisrael, it's not so pashut all the time. But what does it mean for the individual to be living in a gullus consciousness vis-a-vis the possibility of living in a geula consciousness? And as you might guess, it has something to do with the way in which Hashem shows up when we are there, like we learned, showing up properly. But let's see how the Rebbe writes this. So we take a look at the second volume of the Likutei Moharan Tinyana, Torah Yud, and the Rebbe writes as follows. Every word here is mamish gold. This that the world is distant from Hashem, and not only are they distant, but they're not even trying to bring themselves close to Hashem. Miskarvim, they're not bringing themselves close. Says Rebbe Nachman, is not necessarily because they're sinful, but urak machma she'ein lam yishav hadas. They don't have a settled mind. And now this doesn't just mean that they're very busy and so they don't have enough time. That's also a liman schus, and the Kedushas Levi brings that, right? We're so busy trying to make parnassa, and we're schlepping around, and the family stuff and community matters and personal health, etc., etc. It's hard. It's difficult. Rebbe Nachman speaking about something else. Ein lam yishav hadas. What does this mean? Ein lam yishav hadas. Ve'einan miyashvin atzman. They never get in touch with atzman, with themselves. They can be miyashiv many things in their lives. But to be miyashiv atzmam, mamish themselves, they're not awake to that avodah. And even in avodas Hashem, it could be something where you have all these things together, but it hasn't yet touched that place of really taking a look. We're going to learn in a few minutes about emes in a very deep, authentic way. To spend time really getting in touch. Who am I? What are my motivations? What do I want from this life? Yishuv Hadas in the world of Breslov is synonymous with hisbodedus. And Sichas Ran, Rebbe Nachman says that every person should take an hour a day to be miyashiv his mayach, to settle his mind. And the Breslover Mashpiyim teach that it's a reference to all the other places where Rebbe Nachman says you should take an hour a day, or at least however much time we can. It's the same thing. What does a Jew do during hisbodedus? It's time away from the world. Rebbe Nachman says you come back from hisbodedus, you see an olam chadash. It's a new world, because you come back with a new perspective. To be miyashiv yourself and myself. Ve'ena miyashim atzmam. So says Rebbe Nachman, v'ikra, the main thing is le'ishtadel liyashiv atzmai heitev. Atzmai meloshen etzem, to get in touch with the deepest element of ourselves. Ma tachlis mikol atayvus umikol inine olam hazeh. Okay, I have it together. This is assuming we have it together. Every person in their own way has certain things together. We have a certain degree of stability. And this is who we are and what we are, and this is what's going on. It's fine. Taivus, fulfilled. Inine olam hazeh, misudar. But ma hatachlis. What's the point? What is all of this and why? Who is the I that's engaging in all of this? Hein taivus hanechnasas leguf, both mamish physiological taivus, hein taivus shechutz leguf, kagon kavod, and to reflect on this. Are they sufficient for us? And if not, why? Is there a part of us that's longing for more? What is that part of us? What is the more that we're longing for? He says, if we can access this degree of Yishuv Hadas, we're going to return to Hashem. Achdas, says the Rebbe, however, why can't we access this level of Yishuv Hadas? What's in the way? Shal Yidei Mara Shchoira, says Rebbe Nachman, sadness. Sadness. Mara Shchoira is more than sadness. Mamish, blackness. What does it mean that something is black? It means that I can't see before me. I can't see in front of me. Like we've been learning in our Torah Aleph shiur. There's no R in my life. It means I can't see where the next step is. I don't understand how to move forward. Mara shchayra. Everything is as it is. Zeo. Efshir lahanig es hamoyach kirtsoynai. So the mind is not functioning. We've given up on accessing something so deep in life. And so we pursue just standard life. And I don't just mean, again, in a physical sense. This could also mean spiritually. We make sure that we're card-carrying Orthodox Jews. We have our daf, we have our minyanim, whatever it is we're working on. It's good. But somehow deep inside there's a sense of mara shchayra in it. It's without a passion. It's without a vibrancy. It's without a hope. It's without a vision. It's without an understanding of where I fit into this grand picture, to this grand scheme of things. Is it just a community that I happen to have been brought up in and I happen to live in and this is what it is? It's without a fire. And so the mind is not functioning properly. But says Rebbe Nachman, when a person gets in touch with joy, all of a sudden things open up, the mind starts to function on a much deeper level. We give ourselves permission to go deeper, to explore deeper parts of ourselves without needing to strategize how to cover for our sadness. It keeps us on the surface level. But simcha, when a person gets in touch with simcha, things open up. We have a much healthier perspective on things, a broader perspective on things. We're able to dig deep. We're able to see ourselves for who we really are. We're able to see our strengths. We're able to see that there's hope. It's not mara shchayra, it's not darkness. I can do something in life. I'm okay. I have this, that, and the other thing to work on and to fix, but it's in the context of energy, of a light, of a ravchus, of simcha. Ezu asher hasameach bechelkai. bechelkai. Simcha means I don't need everything to be okay. I can just take a look at what actually is in it. Sameach bechelkai. Be happy with that. To be plugged into reality is simcha. Even, by the way, if sometimes the reality doesn't look so good. But there's no greater sadness than faking joy. There's no greater dissonance. There's no greater sadness. We're not showing up fully. Sometimes, Chas v'shalom, Chazal themselves say, it's a pasuk, I believe, Taiv l'leches l'beis avel mil'leches l'beis mishta. It's better. Taiv is always associated with happiness. It's better. It's, in a way, more joyous, in a sense, to go to a beis avel. There's a tremendous amount of sadness there. But there's a tremendous amount of authenticity there. And there's joy in that place. There's no more real social setting than a beis avel. I mean, what are you going to do? Hopefully, right? But in a proper beis avel where people are, taking it seriously, as we hope that they should. You hope, and I give us all a bracha, we shouldn't have to go to a beis avel, but there's a part of you that feels okay. It's the same thing in a cemetery. We don't like to go to a cemetery, but there's something freeing about it. There's something sobering about it. There's an element of facing life, facing reality in that place. I don't believe when Rebbe Nachman says mitzvah gedol aliyas b'simcha tamid, it means that we should paint a clown face, on our face, and no matter what goes wrong in your life, you just have to pretend to be happy all the time. I don't believe that that's the case. I think that what Rebbe Nachman means when he says mitzvah gedol aliyas b'simcha tamid is live with an eye toward the emes of a situation all the time. That we can do. Sometimes are going to be happier times than others, but to be plugged into what is really going on. B'simcha famously is oisias machshava. Simcha opens up the mind. Simcha opens up the mind. Says Rebbe Nachman, v'yuchal yashiv daitai. When a person's connected to that kind of real living, he's miyashiv his mind. Ki simcha u'olam ha'cheira. Simcha is connected to the world of freedom. Mamash, to be free. B'chinas the pasuk Yeshayahu, ki b'simcha seitzeu. Which on a literal level, what does it mean? Yeshayahu is telling Am Yisrael, you'll go out of Gullus. When you go out of Gullus, it will be with great joy. And that's how ordinarily we translate the pasuk. Rebbe Nachman learns it differently. It's not that when you go out of Gullus, you'll have joy. It's that this is how you get out of Gullus. Ki b'simcha, this is seitzeu. This is how we start to take a look at life in a deeper way, in a more real way, being okay with things not being okay, but being able to face it, to be able to look it straight in the face, to be able to engage with that part of us, to be able to bring it out, to be able to bring it into a relationship with Hashem. Ki b'simcha seitzeu, sha'yidei simcha nasin ben chayrin. Through simcha we become free, v'yotzim in agalus, and we're able to leave exile. The Alkain, says Rebbe Nachman, therefore, when a person brings joy up to their mind, as I ben chayrin, so then one's mind is free, and he's able to look at things more accurately, and not judge things just on the surface, and not judge himself just based on what he looks like in the mirror, what his activities are, and what his life has been like until this moment. That's katnus. To be able to see ourselves for who we mamish are. Cheirus, we become free in that moment. The Ein bebechinas galus, he's no longer in that aspect of exile. And then we can come to this experience of Yishav Hadas, because the mind is free and the mind is no longer in exile. And here the Rebbe brings a raya for this, that Yishav Hadas is connected with Geula, and that the opposite is connected. This is what it means to be in Gullus, to be a person who's living, may even on the surface it looks everything's okay, but out of touch with what's really going on. Not miyashiv is etzem, because he's too sad. Maybe he's too hurt. Maybe he's too afraid. Says the Rebbe, we have to connect to teachers like the Rebbe himself, who are giving us permission to go into those places with balance and with health and with Yishav Hadas. So he brings a raya ki al yedei galus ein adas miyushav. Through exile, the das is not miyushav. Kamash Darsh Rabbi Sinus Kana the Rachel Gemara Megillah tells us about the Ammon and Moav, that Ammon and Moav, in some way, I don't know, on some level, had yishav hadas. Timiyasva daitayu. Their mind was miyushav. Machma shalei holcha begalus, because they were never exiled from their place. They always lived where they were. They never had to travel. Shenamar, quoting a pasuk in the end of Yirmiyahu, Sha'anan Moav minu urav. Why? Because of a goyla loy halach. Says the Gemara, Al-Keina Amad Taima Bay. Moav was settled because they never went into Galus. Amad Taima Bay. Because these two things are connected. Yishav Hadas and Geula. And the opposite is also true. To be in exile means not just to be physically estranged from our land, but it means to be estranged from ourselves, which means to say that we live life in a bechina of chutz la'aretz. Not connected to the Eretz Yisrael inside, to the Evan Shasiya inside, to that place that Evan Ma'aswa Boinim, it might not look so pretty, but it's Haisel Rosh Pina. But we don't take a look at that part of ourselves, so we pretend. We pretend, and we get caught up on surface level stuff, because again, either we're too sad, it's not really our fault, it's just to be aware of it. Where's the root of our pain? Where's the root of our suffering? Says Rebbe Nachman, open up, open up, open up. Discover your authenticity. Discover you, who you are. Not to look at yourself, and I shouldn't look at myself, and I struggle with this. Not to look at myself in a katnus way. To recognize who I am. That all of us should recognize who we are. Take a look at the next sentence. V'lavi l'simcha. How does a person come to simcha? Al yedei mashem moitze be'atzmoi ezet nekuda tova. Revolutionary. Revolutionary. It sounds simple. Says the Rebbe, find something good about yourself. A good thing. Be'emes, a good thing. And it sounds cliche and like, okay, I know good things about myself. No, you don't. You don't, because you don't believe the good things about yourself. Because if you mamish, and if I mamish believed the good things about myself, my life will look differently. It's an avoida. It's an avoida. To mamish, dig past the surface of all the layers of despair and all the layers of that part of myself that thinks that I'm hopeless, even though I carry on trying, but I really, part of me gave up a long time ago. Says the Rebbe, stop. Be miyashiv yourself, your etzem. Find an akuda tova. I would venture to say, but even as I venture to say it, I don't even think that it's accurate, and I cry over that. But Baruch Hashem, it's true for myself. I can't suggest that every single person has had an experience like that. I hope you have. But I, Baruch Hashem, have been blessed with moments in my life where I was zoiche to get in touch, mamish. Even though it sounds all cliche, and even if I think back on those moments, it's like, okay, it's like, and mamish got in touch. You call it the inner child. You call it a place of purity. That's there. It's hidden under many, many layers. And there are ways of getting there. There are exercises and there are ways of being able to discover that place again. It's an extraordinarily powerful experience. Because it sounds on paper it should be easy. Yeah, all of us know, we were once a child and we have an innocent part of us and we know it intellectually. But to mamish come face to face with that nekuda tova that all of us are, that all of us mamish are. Before we started hearing noises like that, mamish, who we are, mamish. Something opens up. That's what Rebbe Nachman refers to. Not a small little thing. Nekuda Tova in Reish Pei Beis, which is the main Torah of Azamra, where Rebbe Nachman presents this doctrine of the Nekuda Tova, how important it is to find a good point. The lashon he uses there is Nekuda Tova sheyesh by adayin. That Nekuda Tova that you still have. And the reference, the implication is that it's talking about that youth, that sheyesh by adayin. You have it from a long time ago. It's still there. Says the Rebbe, this is our ticket to simcha. Doesn't mean that we're not aware of our faults. Doesn't mean that we're not aware of all the things we have to fix. But get out of Marash Chayra. It's not hopeless. It's not hopeless. We can accomplish great things. Every single person here. It's not hopeless. We can mamish take our lives to the next level. All of us are accomplishing great things. We can move to the next level. No reason why not. I'll call upon him. Make a remez. I'll call upon him. We said before, Chatu lefanav. I'll call upon him. You can find an Nekuda Taiva there. Come back to the face-to-face revelation. To come before Hashem in truth, in emes. Kamavur al pasuk, like Rebbe Nachman teaches in another place, azamra lelekai ba'oidi. To be able to tap into the place within ourselves that still wants to show up desperately beyond all of the layers of all kinds of dust and filth that we've piled upon ourselves. There's a rutzen inside of us. There's a place within ourselves that isn't satisfied with what we have on the surface, and we're not giving up. And we're willing to bring that into the relationship with Hashem, into the cheder amitos, into that place of the bedroom, kiviyachol, of intimacy, to say, Hashem, I am incomplete without you, and there's a part of me that's open to you. I'm ready. It's a nekuda taiva. I'm ready. K'mayin panim al panim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu enters into that space as well. And this is just a couple of Mamar Chazal, and then we'll move into the last section of the shiur. Chazal, the Gemara Bracha says that Kol mi sheyesh by das or deya ki ilu nimna beis hamikdash biyamav. Whoever has das, it's as if the Beis Hamikdash was built in your days. Maybe a reference to this as well. Whoever is in touch with the reality of their life, both the bad, so to speak, the bad, and mamish also the good. A broad-minded perspective, chayrus, freedom. Ki'ilu nivne Beis Hamikdash biyamav. Mamish, it's as if the Beis Hamikdash was built in their days. All the tzaddikim say, Mishinichnas Av, Mematin B'Simcha, doesn't just mean that when Av comes in, we have to minimize our joy. But Mishinichnas Av, when Av comes in with all of those intense energies, Mematin, we have to do our best to minimize those negative hashpais. How do you do that? B'Simcha. Mishenichnas Av Mematin. It's like the opposite of the Chazal. And of course, both are true. There has to be simcha there. What kind of simcha? Dancing in the street? No. Get real. Get real. Toiv lelechas lebeis avim lelechas lebeis mishta. Another Ma'am Chazal called Masabel al Yerushalayim Zoiche Beroya B'Simchasa. Whoever mourns over Yerushalayim properly, say that tzaddikim, it doesn't just mean they will one day merit to see its rebuilding. In that moment, Zoiche, they become cleansed. Beroya B'Simchasa. And they begin to see B'Simchasa, with the simcha of Geula, even in that moment of being misabel properly in the aspect of kol of toiv leleches lebeis avel. And finally, like we say, and we just sang, im loyala es Yerushalayim al roish simchasi. Again, doesn't simply mean on the surface, at the height of our joy, we have to remember the broken down Yerushalayim. There's a deep, deep connection between roish simchasi and Yerushalayim. These two things are fundamentally bound together. And as much as I have Rosh Simchasi, how could I not be Ala Es Yerushalayim? I tap into that place of freedom. I tap into that place of Geula. Now let's take a look at the context of that pasuk in Malachim that Rebbe Nachman quoted, where Shlomo HaMelech said, how could the Beis HaMikdash possibly contain HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Very beautiful pasuk, and the whole section over there is mamish beautiful. And it highlights how sad it is that we lost this Beis HaMikdash that was once fresh, that Shlomo HaMelech was dedicating, and you read what that looked like. Thank you so very much. Vayomer Hashem Elokei Yisrael ein kamocha. Thank you. Ein kamocha lekim hashamayim ima'av al artz mitacha shomer abris v'achesed la'avadecha holchem l'fanav b'chol libam. This is Shlomo HaMelech talking. Hashem, there's nobody like you. In the heavens above and the earth below, Hashem, you keep your covenant. And you guard the chasadim that you do for the servants that are hoilich lefanecha b'chol libam, that walk before you with all of their hearts. Asher shamarta la'avdecha David avi, that you kept your promises to David, my father. Asher dibarta loi, what you promised him. V'atedaber b'ficha v'yadcha mileisa k'yem hazeh. You said, and you did. You promised that David and David HaMelech's family would build the bayis for you, and you did. So now continue to keep the promise you made to David. Lamar saying, that there will always be of your descendants the kings of Am Yisrael. Rakim yishmru banechas darkam, if only they keep your way. To walk before me like you walked before me. Va'ata lekei Yisrael, and now Shlomo HaMelech declares before all of Am Yisrael, Ye'amina dvarecha asher dibarta la'avdecha David Avi. Be faithful. Maloshen Emuna, be faithful to that which you promised David HaMelech. And now, says the Malbim, the next pasuk, has no place being here. It has no place being anywhere. It's totally random, it would seem. Here we get to the pasuk Rebbe Nachman quoted. Ki ha'umnam yeshiv alikim ala aretz? Should God dwell on the earth? The heavens and the higher realms of Shemaim, they cannot handle you. So should the house that I built contain you? Like, wait a second. If you believe that it could, so then why are you asking? If you don't believe, so why do you build it? What's he saying here? But the psukim continue. And before we take a look at the next pasuk, think back to what we said about what it means for a yid to be redeemed, to show up before HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a broad-minded perspective. Not a surface-level connection, but a deep connection. Not a deep connection that's rooted in sadness, but a deep connection that's rooted in hope. When do we connect to Hashem in such a way? And the answer is through tefillah. Tefillah is where a Jew shows up ready to be, and again, tefillah, I don't just mean a mincha ma'ariv, mamish tefillah, as tefillah is supposed to be. Conscious tefillah. Be aware of where we are, and the words that we're saying, etc. Right? Like all of us daven. Real tefillah. You come before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you're ready to get vulnerable. The premise of tefillah, which is connected also to malchus, tefillah la'ani ki yatav, that was David HaMelech, who was considered an ani. Va'ani tefillah, David HaMelech's whole thing is tefillah. What do we say about malchus? Malchus is that place where I'm incomplete without you. Well, that's what we do in tefillah. Tefillah means that we come before Hashem and say, Master of heaven and earth, I need you in my life. That's the premise of tefillah. If a Jew doesn't believe that, then tefillah is just words. What does tefillah mean? The premise of tefillah is, I need things and I cannot have them without a relationship with you. And this is deeper than Hashem just being a vending machine. So you walk into tefillah and you say the right words and a snack comes out. It's much deeper. Because you and I understand that we could get all the things in Shemoneh Esrei, but we could still be missing the fundamental aspect of the relationship value, without which none of this is worth it at all. Yesh le'mana roitza masayim, right? It doesn't end. Ein adam meis v'chatzi tavasi b'yado. So you could have the whole Shemoneh Esrei, Baruch Aleinu, all those brachas could be fulfilled, but that's not what we're after. Tefillah itself is an answer, irrespective of whether the answer to our tefillah is yes or no, because what we really want is a connection to Hashem. We come into tefillah with a vulnerable consciousness. Take a look at the next pasuk. Ufanisa el tfilas abdecha ve'el tchinasai. What's the kesher now between the pasuk before and the pasuk now about tefillah? He says, Hashem, you have turned to the tefillah of your servant Hashem Alekai l'shmai ala rina v'ala tefillah, to listen to the song and to listen to the tefillah asher avdecha mispalel l'fnecha hayom, that your servant is praying before you today. And the next two psukim also continue this theme. Let your eyes be open, face to face. El abayis hazel laila v'yom, night and day. El hamakam asher amarta yishmisham, that my name should dwell there. Lishmaya el atfila asher yispal el avdecha, to listen to the tefillas that will be prayed there. El hamakam hazeh, in this place. Vishamanta el tchinas avdecha, and you shall listen to the prayers of your servant. Va'amchi Yisrael asher yispal el hamakam hazeh, that will dive into this place. Va'ata tishma el mekayim shivtecha el hashamayim vishamata v'salachta. These psukim are the answer to Shlomo HaMelech's question. So deep. These psukim are the answer to Shlomo HaMelech's question. Shlomo HaMelech's question is Rebbe Nachman's question. Rebbe Nachman's question is Shlomo HaMelech's question. How could HaKadosh Baruch Hu ever dwell in this place? Well, what does it mean for Hashem to dwell in this place? It means for him to express his vulnerability. How do we get that kind of relationship with Hashem? Says Shlomo HaMelech, there's only one way. Show up vulnerably. Enter into tefillah. Bring your whole self into it. Nothing else in life matters. Chaver, nothing else matters. This is the only thing in life that matters, because this is what life is about. What a moment when a Jew enters into a relationship with Hashem and whispers Shemoneh Esrei with a heart that's on fire, that's conscious of Hashem. Do you know what's happening in that moment? HaKadosh Baruch Hu begins to whisper back and says, I need you just the same. I need you just the same. This is what the Beis HaMikdash was. This is what we lost. Not financial prosperity, and we don't want there to be sickness in the world. All this is true. What we're yearning for is to be real again. Not to be redeemed again. To be real again. That is the redemption. That is the simcha seitzeu. That is the world of freedom. That's what tefillah means. Ki beisi beis tefillah yikar l'chol ha'am. That's what the Beis HaMikdash is. It's a place of prayer. Now let's learn one final teaching. And this will bring it all home. We're going to make a number of diukim. And then we'll come to the end.
Is there a meaning for mincha? Sorry.
I'm sorry. You were relying on mincha here? I think we'll daven marav afterwards.
Oh, yes? Okay. We don't know. Okay, so
I'm so sorry. I apologize. I should have made it clear.
no problem.
I'm sorry. And we don't usually have the money for it. It's not... Okay. Okay, so says the Heilige Rebbe in Kuf Yud Beis. We have to daven, so by all means. Says the Heilige Rebbe, Hini adu atznon ki saviv rishayim yishalachon. Let's try to focus just for this last shtickle here. Ki saviv rishayim yishalachon. The pasuk in Tehillim says, David HaMelech again, David HaMelech, Malchus, the Rishayim are surrounding me. Says the Rebbe, it means much deeper, again, than David HaMelech's experience, which was true, al pi pshat. He says, David HaMelech is teaching ki ha-sitra achra misabeves ha-kedusha, ki azelu umazeh asa. The other side, the forces of concealment, not the forces of the Gilui of Hashem, they always revolve around holiness. Saviv Rishayim Yishalach, and they always go around and around. Why is this? Why do they go around? For the same reason that when you drop a piece of cake outside in the summer, ants will come and surround the piece of cake. Why are they all surrounding it? Why don't they all wait in line? Because they're all being yoinik from this piece of cake. They're all getting sustenance from it. And so they want to surround it on all sides because they're drawing on it. That's what the deeper Svarim teach, is why the Sitra Achra is always Misabebes HaKedusha. Not because it's trapping it, but because it needs something from it. It gets its sustenance from sparks of holiness. And when those sparks of holiness fall and they become detached from the entirety of a healthy, full-bodied experience of spirituality, the Sitra Achra can close in. It's Misabeves HaKedusha. Ki azelu umazeh asa, because where there's a great degree of holiness, there's going to also be negative forces that are trying to take from it. Now here are some of the most heartbreaking words that I've seen in my limited experience with Rebbe Nachman's teachings. Ubefrat mi shekvar nimshach achar aveirus, says the Rebbe, you can have a person that's already drawn after aveirus. To be drawn after aveirus means it's not something that's just happens to be and it's something he regrets. He's drawn after it. Chas v'shalom. V'nimshach achar sitra achar. There's a real, genuine koyach hamoishech to the point, shocking words, v'sham mikoymoi. That is his place. Shocking words. For that to be a Jew's place, sham mikoymoi, that's where he almost belongs. But of course it's a dimyan. What does it mean for some place to be a person's place? It means that that's where they feel comfortable. That's their place. That's even colloquially we say, like, that's my place, right? Like that's my chill. That's where he thinks that's where he belongs. Sham mikoymoi. Going back to that previous Torah, he doesn't need Hashem anymore. Everything, kol ha'taivos, kol inin olam hazeh, he's got it. Everything's in order. Sham mikoymoi. V'hei mesaviv and oisei mikol tzad, but he's aware that he's being surrounded by these forces, and he thinks that he's being surrounded by them because he's trapped. And what he doesn't have is that in as much as he's being surrounded, what does that mean? That he has nekudas toivos. That's why he's being surrounded. You see, it's mamash a dimyan. He thinks, he looks around and he thinks, whoa, I'm so far, I'm trapped in. No, adarabba. The fact that you feel trapped in, the fact that you still sense, it means that there's something there that the Sitra Achra is after. But he's blind to it.
values you and he goes after you, that means that there is
Zeh, that means that there's value there. But he's in a dimyan. Sham mikaymai. And when such a person gets up and he wants to return to Hashem, it's very hard for him. What is hard for him? Lihispalel. Such a person, it's incredibly difficult to daven. Because he's not showing up vulnerably. He has everything he needs in that place. He's hopeless. He called sad. He cannot daven. L'daber diburim l'fnei Hashem to mamish daber diburim. So come on, knock off a Shemana Esrei if he's lucky. He doesn't mamish come in with a broken heart, which, as the Kotzker teaches, is the most whole thing in the world, the most holy thing in the world. Every person in the way that person experiences life. So he davens maybe, but he cannot daven with awe and fear, mamish, with fire, with vitality, with a light, with ar. They cannot go up, they cannot ascend. The tefillas remain down here, they're disconnected from an open channel. And they remain below. They remain below, underneath these barriers. Until the person merits to return to Hashem with truth. And he starts to daven with awe and with fear. From the deepest place of his heart, with a tremendous awakening, to wake up. There's a place inside of me that's alive. All those boundaries are breached. This is the kedusha of the breaching of the walls of Yerushalayim. Adarabba. And all the tefillas that were trapped previously, they all go up. How do we do this? How do we access this? Says the Rebbe, there's only one way. And he means it. The foundation that everything relies on, everything, hu emes, is truth. And truth doesn't just mean to say true things. It means authenticity. That's how you translate truth. To be authentic. Authentic in our relationships. Authentic in our avodas Hashem. Leilech b'derech emes, says the Rebbe. Interesting thing, the Tanya references this in a number of places. Lefi madre gasai. Not absolute emes, but in as much as you can. Try to get to a place of truth within yourself. And when you do that, says the Rebbe, Ki chaysamei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu emes. Hashem's stamp is emes. What's the stamp of a king? Is where the king is. That's the place where he is. Especially HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that all we have is his name. It's the stamp of Hashem. It's emes. Hashem lekechem emes. V'hu yisoid hakol. It is the foundation for hakol. The fact that there is a world in the first place. Hashem's stamp. Authenticity. Hashem showing up. Revealing his innermost need. Kiviyachol. Ki emes hu rosh toich saif. Emes, the letter Aleph, is the first letter of the Aleph base. Taf is the last letter of the Aleph base. Mem is the middle. Meaning, like the Kotzker says, durch and durch. It's got to cut all the way through. To the deepest part of us. Sometimes that means getting real with the things we have to fix. Can be. But the way that Rebbe Nachman saw it is look beyond that too. And the healing begins not in shame. The healing begins in understanding our essential, fundamental godless. That's where the healing begins. Nekuda toiva mamish etzem. V'kivan shu b'madregas emes. Once a person accesses this truth, this authenticity, as I kiviyachon eslabish by or Hashem isbarach ba'atzmai. So then you open the channel. K'mayim panim al panim. The kruvim face each other again. We become to Hashem the female kruv, the Ezer Kenegdoi, so to speak, an Ezer. We have a place in the world. Asher chaysamai shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu is emes. Va'az nemar alav, and then about this person it says, Hashem oiri v'yishi. Hashem is my light and my salvation. The kivon Hashem arloi, says the Rebbe, so you can access this way in which Hashem is light in your life? Guess what happens then? Yuchel limtzai Psachim harbe lotzeis me'achoshech v'hagalos, that word galos, shehu sagrasha. Hashem's light is emes. You access emes. Hashem lekechem emes. Hashem oiri v'yishi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is my light. The light is turned on in my life, and all of a sudden I'm able to see there are doorways for me to get out of where I am. I wasn't seeing clearly. It's not that there weren't doors. It's not that they were closed. It's just that it was really dark. Mara shchayra. It was really dark. And here the Rebbe says a pella, with this we'll finish. There are doors, says the Rebbe. How do you know there are doors? Maybe there's not a door. Maybe these walls sprung up around me and there's no way out. Look how the Rebbe learns that there are doors. And mamish, this is a diak, lanias daiti. I haven't seen it quoted, but I think it's mamish mafurish. Says the Rebbe, there are doors. Because Chazal say, habalatame paischenlai. If a person wants, chas v'shalom, to be metame, to access impurity, they open the door for you. Says the Rebbe, there's a door in, then there's a door out. But listen to the depth of this, very, very deep. It's not just very deep. Yesh leipsachim harbe. Not just that the Rebbe is saying, okay, theoretically, conceptually, there's a doorway in, there's a doorway out. No. Listen to this. The doorway that brought you in is the doorway that will bring you out, which means MS needs to begin where we can come before our Kodesh Baruch Hu and say, Loi Amos, I do not want to live a life of death. Risham afilu b'chayim kriyim mesim ki echya. I want to live, and so va'asaper maseka. Rebbe Nachman, let me tell you my story. Listen to the depth of this. Telling you my story, Rebbe Nachman, forces me back into the Nakud Taiva sheyesh biyadayin. Let me tell you where things started, and let me tell you what somebody whispered to me on a bus in 4th grade. And let me tell you what kind of dysfunction I experienced over here and what happened to me over there. And let me tell you how the sadness crept into my life. And let me tell you how this whole long sipur started. And let me reflect on who I really am. And let me reflect on what took place along the way. And let me be honest with myself, whether that first chait was a chait or it was confusion. And according to Rebbe Nachman himself in Sichas Ran and the Kedushas Levi, Mizdrushim to Rosh Hashanah. Mavir Rishon, they say. What does it mean, Mavir Rishon? He says all Hashem needs to do is just erase the first chait and everything else, because Aver Gereres Avera. And it's so wild because the first chait is not a chait. It's called Chatas Ne'urav, right? Where did it all start? A malicious act of rebellion? How did you get in here? Says Rebbe Nachman, get in touch with that place, get real. That's the doorway out. That is the doorway out. Habalatame poischinlai, says the Rebbe, yesh psachim harbe. Once there are gates, he was able to leave. But he didn't have Yeshua Das. And so it was dark. You couldn't see. It was Mara Shchayra. We didn't see the way out. So we thought that we're stuck there. And we thought there's no way out for me. And we fell into Yush. And we thought that there's no hope. And so we kept on serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a very transactional, official, sophisticated way, without mamish opening up the deepest depth of our heart to come to Him vulnerably. And so we couldn't get out. Till we started to daven properly, like Shlomo Melech tells us. That's how the bias can contain Hashem. That's the missing link. When we complete our half of it and we show up for real, mamish for real, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm right there with you. Ein melech b'lei am. Huh? Paischin, right. So, right, Paischin. Doesn't say they closed it after. Beautiful. So diak in another Torah for Rebbe Nachman where the door is closed but it's not locked. It's also a diak in the Rambam like that. And the Peliyotes also talks about this. And that's in Torah Ayin Gimel and Tinyana. So sometimes the door can be closed. But it's not locked. It's for sure not locked. However, this is what we're davening for. This is the whole inyan of 3 weeks, 9 days, coming in out to Tisha B'Av. We should celebrate it in Yerushalayim. Moshe Rabbeinu understands the only way to get into Eretz Yisrael is tefillah. vulnerable tefillah, as Rashi tells us, oitzer matnas chinam, without coming with suchuyot, without coming to Hashem and saying, I earned this, I earned that. No, I have nothing. I have nothing, and you have everything. And we will have everything together when I'll show up with my needing you, and you'll show up with you needing me. And let's come back. Let's come back to that place, Master of Heaven and Earth. Let's come back to Devir Kachecha, Lashon of Dibur. Let's come back to a place where we can talk heart to heart, panim bepanim, ayin ba'ayin, yiru b'shuv Hashem eszion, shebizaycha be'ezes Hashem, to the geula shlema v'amitis, v'meher b'yameinu, amen.
Amen.
Dididahda, maya, 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 Did